What's up, everybody? Welcome to CFP Talks. My name is Joe Nissim, and today we have a fantastic episode for you. So, if you are somebody that is going to take the CFP exam and you're sitting there and wondering, how do I structure my study plan? What do I need in terms of tools and resources? How should I think about this? How should I prepare my mock exams? When do I start doing practice questions? Today's episode is for you. We walk through the entire study process with two of our students from our July class who went on to pass the CFP. And we talked through their entire process. We talked about how they prepared starting at 8 weeks out, how that changed at the 4 week mark, how they structured their mock exams, what they did and their attitude and their approach for those mock exams so they could make their next attempt their last. Now, we always have, as always, we have a couple special offers for you. The question bank that those students use is linked directly under this video. And we have a special offer for you where, for any reason that you are not liking that question bank, and you can return it to us in 7 days, no questions asked. And if you'd like to sit down and discuss and see if this class is a good fit for you, sit down with me for 30 to 45 minutes. We're going to talk through your CFP prep step by step and see if you're an actual great candidate for this course. That link is directly below as well. And as always, please make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so Raman and I can continue bringing types of content just like this video. And let's make your next attempt your last. We'll see you next week. What's up, everybody? Welcome to CFP Talks. My name is Joe Nissim, and with me, as always, is my main man, Mr. Raman Singh. And today, we have a very special episode for you guys, bringing more people back from our beautiful 6 for 6 class. Today, we have James Hefley and Nipa Patel. Guys, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey,
Great.
Great to be here.
freshly minted CFPs over here. Freshly minted. They're like great to be here, but just don't give us any any in-class assignments right now, Joe.
Yeah, great to be in this discussion where it's not a class.
Yeah.
So, you guys now officially have your letters. We got certificates hopefully in the mail, if not in your mailboxes already. Let's dive right into it. And why don't you guys just tell us a little bit about yourselves? And James, we'll start with you. Nipa, we'll have you go after James. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your background? What do you guys currently do for work? And what piqued your interest to actually take the CFP?
Yeah. So I'm James Heffley. I'm a wealth management advisor with Northwestern Mutual, also the managing director of our office here in Bakersfield, California. I've been with the firm for 13 years. So I studied finance at Cal State University, Bakersfield, and took an internship with Northwestern, and been here ever since. And, I had kind of gone through my whole career toying with the idea of like, I need to get to that next step professionally and get some letters after my name. But early on in my career, I kind of wore two hats with being an advisor, but also being in leadership, and had kind of always kicked the can down the road. And then with a wedding coming up and or now gone, but it was coming up, and knew that we wanted to start a family, I'm like, man, I got to get this thing done now, or it's probably never going to happen. So that's when I got connected with you, Joe.
Amazing. How about you, Nipa?
Yeah, Nipa Patel. I'm also with Northwestern Mutual, but I am in home office. I spent a year and a half, 2 years in the Northwestern Mutual field, and I'm coming into this field as a career changer. So I spent about 20 some years in management consulting, specifically around cybersecurity, regulatory compliance. And I'm making my way through this journey through actually financial therapy. So my exposure is that I have a K-State graduate certification in financial therapy, and I'm really interested and passionate about human relationships to money. And so through financial therapy, I'm also in AFC, which was a counseling route, and then obviously CFP was the natural progression. But similar to James, I've got now two kids in high school, and I started to feel like if it's not now, it probably won't be ever. So timing of this was correct, and this is my second attempt. So first attempt was last November, and I'm happy to say the second attempt was the charm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, so you guys are definitely coming from two pretty unique backgrounds. James, kind of, you're like the homegrown route where you intern, NM gotcha, and they never let you go. And Nipa, you really came from a very different background and from a kind of a different approach, and probably an area that we will see more and more about going forward, which is financial therapy and our relationship to money, which if we talked about this 20 years ago, nobody would even acknowledge it. So you start diving into the material and you guys start getting into the review. And James, I had worked with you previously as you were going through the education. What were you guys kind of some of your initial reactions to the material? And then once we got into class, what were some of your initial reactions with some of the material that you guys started seeing in class? James, let's start with you
Yeah.
again.
Um, I started my CFP journey using a self-paced course and I had a few start-stop moments over a couple years and I had seen you on LinkedIn, Joe, and that's when I reached out. We had our consultation and I think for me, like it was just about structure. Like I think I was having a hard time when I was trying to Lone Ranger it. And as soon as we started working together and we got through those last three education modules, it's like I just needed someone with a hand on my shoulder. I tend to need some accountability, especially when I'm getting out of my comfort zone. And I mean, to me, like the class and the whole reason I passed was just the structure and the clarity that it provided.
Were you overwhelmed by the material? Did you like the material? Were you surprised at some of the things that kind of CFP does put on the exam?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I really enjoyed the education process because there were times that I was learning topics in my class and able to just directly correlate it into the work that I was doing, at NM. So that I thought was really cool. I think for me, it was just a little overwhelming at times when it was
Yeah.
when I got out of the scope of things that I deal with on a daily basis and we started getting into tax and estate planning and stuff that I just hadn't had as much exposure to. That's where I found that like I really needed the support and the structure and someone to lean on for advice when I was struggling with certain topics.
Yeah, tax and estate for me too. I remember that, and I was like, I remember looking at the tax code like Zach Galifianakis in the poker scene and going, oh, like the numbers are floating in front of me. What about you, Nipa?
Yeah, my educational journey for CFP, actually similar to James, did a self-paced course with Boston Institute of Finance. And, you know, it's been a while since I've actually gone through a rigorous study of any sort, right? The last time I was in college of sort was when I had my MBA in my late 20s. And the first time around, thinking that the self-paced education was the right choice. Now, from a lifestyle perspective, I think it really did work best. But as a student and as an adult student, I felt that I really did cut corners in terms of learning the material and all of that, which then eventually caught up at the time of studying for the exam. And during my first attempt, again through Boston Institute of Finance, I really appreciated their support in really helping make sure that you really had a good handle on the material. And a lot of lessons learned through both attempts and process, but I would say this time around, really, Joe, the structure that you provided through the course, and for me, learning from the first exercise, which was also I needed a structure and I needed actually a live study group to study with. It's great to go through books and materials, but that what you learn through conversation, even if you're just listening to someone else's conversation, I felt like that certainly was one of few factors that led to the success this attempt.
Yeah. So we get into class. You guys are doing these live conversations. You're forced to kind of do things in an open book format. Obviously, we designed this class to be a bit different. We wanted that interaction. I'm a big believer, Raman is a big believer that we learn best in groups.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I went to Rutgers University. I walk into class, my first lecture hall, and there's 500 people. I'm like, whoa, way too many. But we kind of find the intimacy of a group and what you guys said. where you get to listen and hear just the way that other people are processing it. Did that take you aback, or did you guys kind of embrace that right away, or did it take you a little bit to kind of go, huh, maybe there is something to it where I'm doing a lot of the talking and then, our instructors are kind of rolling around and assisting, but we are kind of driving the process. Was that different? Did you guys like it initially? Obviously, coming back and looking and you're going, this is great. But what was kind of the initial reaction? Because a lot of students come back and go, my initial reaction was X.
Mhm.
Looking back, I'm like, this is why. So, James, let's start with you again.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I was a little intimidated the first day we had live class, and I remember we had our assignment. We broke up into groups, and I think I got the first three questions wrong, and I was sitting there going like, "Dude, like terrible showing." But I mean, I really came to appreciate that format because I think we all process information differently, and like being able to talk through these problems and hear how people are formatting them. And I think I learned so much from that. But yeah, I mean, my initial reaction was like, this is a little intimidating. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
it's like you're kind of having to put yourself out there and defend your answer amongst a group of your peers. And yeah, it definitely had me a little rattled that first day of class. And I do remember the second day, it's like I came in super prepared. I had got the majority of the questions right on that one, and I felt so much better leaving the second day than when I did the first.
It's kind of an addicting feeling of like, I put up a good
Yeah.
showing today. Yeah. What about you, Nipa?
Yeah. The initial reaction, obviously, I think I was super jazzed about the fact that this was highly structured, right? And early on, I had realized that I really struggled with the application of focus and concentration with work, kids, everything else that goes on in life, and then to carve out time for studying. And that just being able to concentrate, even if I had 2 hours, the ability to maximize those 2 hours in a focused learning method was something that I struggled with. So I really was jazzed about the fact that I would have to do a little less of the lifting of the structure, and that I would just have to show up. And to similar to James, I think the first class, uh, obviously got a couple of questions wrong, but my mindset was I got it. I will kind of work through it, and there's a lot to do. And that was also the idea that I have time. Like there is the perception of time at early on, which is very different than week 5 and week 6. So I think that was that. But then for getting through first week was like it is structure, but that structure demands a lot of showing up and being prepared outside of class. It requires a lot of dedication out of class. So really felt like it was time to amp up the dedication to the process, which was great, but certainly overwhelming to go from the idea of doing it to then doing it.
It's a big contrast from self-study, which is like, I'll
Yes.
get to it when I get to it, to like, I got to get my butt in gear because we review this at Thursday at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 1 o'clock our time, James. Um, Raman, I know you have the next question
Yeah.
geared up.
And then also, speaking to what James mentioned about having that structure and then, showing up to class initially. Um, and as you saw, like the first week of the class is you're getting to know the process, you're getting to understand the process. Haven't done something like this before in a while or at all. And then you're in front of like these strange people that you have never met, or maybe one person in class and you're like, wow, like they're all studying for the CFP. And now what we're doing, as you see, is like, week 3, week 4, and to Nipa's point, week 5 and week 6, you're just drinking out of a fire hose at this point. So given 5 weeks into the program, what type of challenges and hardships would you say you guys starting to experience when it comes to like balancing work life, studying, and meeting these expectations of class and finishing up homework? And then how did you guys make sure that you were able to overcome some of these hardships and challenges? Oh, James.
Especially like 100 questions a week or
Yeah,
100
especially
questions a
that.
day for a week. What kind of evil person programs that?
Yeah, no kidding.
James.
Yeah, I think for me, definitely when we started getting into the more intense weeks in terms of number of questions, like I had to make sure that I had time built into my calendar for homework. And I also had to be mindful of like what my day looked like at the office. So I found myself doing a lot more homework in the mornings because I just found that like at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, like my brain was just not in a place to go sit down and knock out, 50 questions at a time. So yeah, I kind of structured it where I did more of my work in the morning because I felt like I was fresh and I've always been a morning person, so it just kind of fit my routine better. But I definitely had to start rearranging some of the stuff on my calendar as we got into the more intense weeks.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I will say, maybe before I answer that question, I want to touch on the group dynamic. I'm somewhat of a competitive individual, so um,
We didn't notice,
come,
Nipo.
You're like, well, okay.
yeah, coming into the session, there's I really thrive on learning from others, and this was I really was thankful for the group that we had, and it was a really great group dynamic where we weren't shying away from what we didn't know and what we had yet to learn, to also supporting each other on answering questions and even being supportive outside of the class. I just want to acknowledge that though the pace of the course was, really what it needed to be for success, I think the group dynamic really helped out. Um, my experience coming into week 5 and 6 was I really was hitting a wall, meaning I think I sent an email to Joe saying, like, I just can't do this. Like, I'm done. I can't do this. And Joe, I really appreciate the way you nudge, right? Like, it was like, it's okay. You don't have to do it all. Just keep doing, right? Like, keep
Mm.
progressing, keep moving forward. And by the time we got to week 5 and 6, we really were getting through about 100 questions a day, multiple quizzes, multiple mock exams. Um, and I got to a place at one point, I was like, I physically couldn't do more,
Yeah.
whether it was sitting down, concentration, and all of that. And I really appreciate that nudge. And I think that if you hadn't given me that nudge, I probably would have taken my foot off the gas pedal versus you saying, you know what, you can't do all quizzes, do few, right? Let's just keep moving. Really appreciated that. And then from a structure perspective, I realized in week 2 or 3, I really needed long periods of time to be able to go in depth to materials. I couldn't do 2 hours in the morning and then another two in the evening. I could do the 2 hours, but it takes me a little while to get into the rhythm and get into the learning. So for me, it were basically the evenings after work. And obviously, I had a few things going on family wise that took a little bit of time away as well. But just really having that rhythm and structure. So I was actually studying a lot more in the evening, but had to really have that shift of everywhere you go, you hear like morning hours are great, but it just wasn't working for me, and just had to dedicate the time in the evening.
Mm.
See, me and Raman argue about this, and I'm the longer study person, and
Yeah,
Raman likes to break it into pieces.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need a 3 hour block because I know the first 30 minutes
yes,
is me just decompressing from the day and I'm a little antsy. And then there's somehow that 30-minute mark, I'm like in it. And then by an hour in, I'm not even feeling the time passing because I'm in the zone. Like I'm just
yeah,
there. And I like that because as you guys know, the momentum of this exam is fragile,
Mhm.
yeah.
right?
It's very fragile. Yep.
And you know how quickly it's like if you miss a study day, not the biggest day in the deal in the world. You miss two, by day three, it takes a little time to get back in the groove, which is, think about how long it took you to get there and how fast it goes away. And it's such a fragile thing. And I knew Nepo because you did have some things going on outside of the work and the exam that if we just kept you moving,
Yeah,
you were going to be in good shape. But we just had to keep you going, and that was the key there. And James, at some point I think you fell a little bit behind, and then you got yourself a little bit ahead, where you kind of hit this groove where you were like, and I knew where it was. You were like, you were trying to fit it into your day, and then I think everybody hits this point and they go, screw it, I can't do everything. Something has to stop, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
And for CFA and CFP, like it was just like my day ended at 4 and I was going home and I was studying from 6 to 9 or 6 to 10, but there was no social engagements. I would go to the gym twice a week instead of my normal five. Things had to change, otherwise it was never going to get done. And when there's a finite amount of time, I think it's easier, especially at the 5 week mark, where you're right, Nipa, the looking at it from week one, you're like, oh, there's 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But Raman, I'm sorry I interrupted. I'll let you continue your
Oh
flow.
no, no, that's fine. But I'm glad you guys brought that up. And Joe mentioned about hitting that wall, right? So you're studying, and then you're week 5 in Nepal. You're just like, okay, like you're second guessing, right? Like you're second guessing everything about your life at this point. Like, am I even good enough to do it? Like, like everybody goes through that phase, right? So back to you guys about when you hit that wall, right? What did you have to tell yourself, or what did you do at that point to make sure that you continue to push forward? Was it like taking a little bit of break? I know, Nipa, you said Joe reached out and said a few things, but I would love to just kind of get you guys to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that.
Yeah, I think for me, like I don't have a ton of people in my life that challenge me on things. Like I don't have, a lot of people that are helping me track goals and really, challenging me on the timelines. And I remember when we had the first mock exam from the CFP website, I had a bachelor party that weekend, and I think I got through about 30 questions of the mock exam. And it's like, I'm in a hotel room, I'm sharing a room with a buddy of mine, and we're in the heat of this bachelor party weekend. And I'm like, it's Saturday morning, I'm trying to study, and I just kind of brushed it off. And that Monday, Joe, I know you were like, James, stay after class. And I'm like, oh man, haven't had one of these conversations in a while. But I appreciated that, you brought up, you're like, man, you've invested a lot of money in this. We'd been working individually together for I think 5 or 6 months prior to the group class starting. And you called me out and we're like, look, like we can't get this far and then not take it serious. And I feel like that helped me challenge myself and kind of grab that extra gear in terms of studying and having my assistant clear out some stuff from my calendar to make more time. So yeah, I think that to me was kind of the pivotal point in CFP studying that helped me get through the exam and
And
pass.
thank you for the polite version of that, James.
Yes.
Appreciate that. We're trying to keep clients flowing in the door. They don't
Yeah.
want.
Well, on my end, I think week 5, I started to feel it a little bit in week 4, and then it really got real week 5. And partly it had to do with some of the family stuff that I had going on. And I got to a place where two things were at play. One is I have a sort of performance anxiety, so to say. And that really played a big role in my first attempt, where I was really just afraid of the failure. This time around, my monologue was really around failure is just a learning opportunity. So that really helped. And then second one being, I just took a weekend off actually. When I got to a place where I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't eating enough, I really hadn't, connected with the family on a regular basis. I just took a weekend off. I love the forest preserve, hikes. I did that over a weekend and then really got back into it. And over the weekend, when I say I took it off, let me just say I kept up with the flashcards. I have to say, I didn't appreciate the value of the structured flashcards, Joe, that you provided. In the past, I had flashcards, but it really wasn't a structured approach to flashcards. So I really appreciated that. And that really kept into play for that weekend where I felt like I didn't do anything. Just
Right.
keeping up with the flashcard was good enough. And then obviously I have to say, support of my family, husband, kids, as well as people at work. I just couldn't, I don't think I could come over the hump of the week 5, 6 without just general support from Joe, you, from kids, from my colleagues at work. I think that played a huge role for me to just keep going, like one step in front of the other and just keep
Yeah.
going. And I think week 6 felt much better after taking a little bit of break and then just going straight into week 7 and 8.
Hmm.
And like I said, once you get over that hump, right? It's like you're unlocking a new skill set, new
Yes.
level in your life at that point.
Yes.
Like, all right, like that's it. I'm just gonna finish through. So that's great. And you both mentioned these two key valuable components, and I'd like to touch base on that. You mentioned, James, about the mock exam, and then Nipa, you mentioned the flashcards. So when it comes to preparation for the exam, listen, everyone has an access to a mock exam, right? It's not, you could go to the CFP board's website and do a free mock exam. You can have the whatever flashcards of by your provider. But how would you say in our sitting, the way we had structured the class, like when it comes to these mock exams, how do you feel like they serve that purpose in your studying? How was it different than just going out and doing a mock exam on its own?
I think for me, like in general, the learning that I had with you guys was structured so differently than any type of testing practice that I had done before. I find that like when I was studying for my seven and for any other exam that I've taken, it's like a lot of the time you're just memorizing answers. And it's like you can look at a question and know the answer, but couldn't really articulate how we got there. And I know early on working with Joe, it's like just the whole format of how we would answer the questions was very different. And so you really had to understand the underlying concepts and what was going on there. And so I think for me, that was just the biggest advantage is having a different learning style versus just doing practice exams and going, I got that wrong because of this, but not truly understanding the underlying, mechanisms of the question. So that to me was the most valuable.
And Nipa?
Yeah. For me, obviously the flashcards, and I don't think I really appreciated them till week 5 or 6 because by then the information was really getting cobbled up in my brain, right? By the time you get to week 5 and 6, there's just so much that you're processing to remember the small nuances through flashcards was key. The mock exam and even the quizzes starting, I think, week 5 or 6, they really helped in time bounding, right? Time bounding. It's a time. Not only is this exam about what you know, how much you know, but how much can you process within a given time. So I think that was really helpful. Though it was intimidating, and might I add, going through that and sitting through that. Okay, it's a 2-hour quiz, and I need to just do it in 2 hours. Mock exam, I really appreciate the fact that we started way earlier, right? We started, I think you released mock exams week 6 or 7. That was really helpful. And the fact that we went through 3 of them, but not including the CFP board mock exam, it was like just a practice for the game day. It was a practice for the game day. I didn't appreciate what do I need to eat and drink before the exam? What do I need to do during the exam? Like how do I get into the mental headspace? Exercise, all of that. Just, I felt like having that repetition and the time and the opportunity to refine that by the time we got to the game day was really helpful. I think that was definitely.
So, Nipa, you mentioned that. I want to just quickly pick on what you just said.
Yeah.
You said preparing me for the game day using the mock exam. Now, once again, so I can, if I'm studying for the CFP exam, I can literally just turn on my computer, take a mock exam, do my thing, I took a mock exam. Hey, how was it different with, when we structured the mock exam for you guys? What are some of the parameters that we had mentioned and you would say like, oh my God, like what? It's just a mock exam, but what was going in your mind when we built that structure for you guys on how to take that mock exam?
I think first of all, your commentary about how to approach the mock exam was really helpful, right? It's one thing for all of us to have our own interpretation of mock exam. I think every single person that's taken in a CFP mock exam has their own interpretation of what is the value that they are looking to get out of that experience. I think you providing that commentary of treat it like a practice. Make sure you're starting at 8 o'clock. Make sure you're thinking about what you want to eat, how you want to, what you want to do the day before, right? Just that pure guidance really helped me get out of my own head or even confirm or question some of my own thinking around the mock exam and what I was thinking to get out of that. So I think that your coaching, I'll just say, your coaching around the mock exam was really helpful. Not to mention the questions and also the answers, the way in which you provide. When we get the question wrong and your explanation of the questions, many times I found really helpful because the way you break it down, right? So it really refined my thinking around that. And not to mention the timing of it, right? You honed in on us. It's 2 minutes, right? Like you got to move on to the next one, and your guidance around how to mark the question, come back to them, and all of that I think played a lot in it. And then just having 3 opportunities to just practice.
Yeah.
It was really helpful for me. James, for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think just coming in and like treating it like it's a real exam. I know the first mock exam that I did it at home. And it was a disaster. It's like my dogs are there and people are dropping off Amazon packages at the doorstep and like there's all this stuff going on that's distracting. And after that first mock, I was like, okay, I've got to be at my office. I've got to be in a conference room. No one's going to be
Mm.
there Saturday morning. Like, I've got to get up. I'm going to treat it just like the exam day. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to eat a light breakfast. I don't want to be too lethargic. But I think after that first one, I realized like I've got to treat this very serious if I'm going to go do 6 hours because just the brain power and just being in the right environment. So I think after that first one, that was a big learning experience, and I was pretty locked in after that.
And the stamina.
Yeah.
The
Stamina.
stamina is I think we all think we can just go do 6 hours. Um, and it's just gonna happen. All right. The adrenaline is gonna
Yeah.
carry me on exam day. And I'm like, no,
Mm-mm.
it doesn't. I've puttered out on exams before. I'm like, oof, that was a close one, and you never want to take that chance. Deepa, tell me a little bit about you had a mock exam mishap, which I honestly think it was probably the best thing that happened to you because I think it it essentially manifested the worst possible case scenario that could possibly happen at an exam. And you're like, I think I'm okay. Like it didn't, my life is not over. I'm breathing. So can you just tell us a little bit about that and how that also played a role in being ready for exam day?
Absolutely. So, similar to the first, I think first mock exam, I did it at home. And, while I have the privacy of my own office to lock the door and do it at home, still it wasn't really the same concentrated experience. So I went to the local library and, we get to the local library. The local library actually had, unfortunately, gone through some cyber attack. So network at the local library was really, they were trying to recover from the cyber attack and all of that. So network was very unstable. I start my mock exam, I think 50 some questions in, the network goes down.
Mm.
And like network goes down, I retry, we go get back into it, and I think it 2 or 3 times that happened, and then I finally just like I gave up on the exam. But had this happened at maybe my previous attempt, I think I would have freaked out a lot in terms of what do I do, how do I get back to it, and also the CFP board mock exam is really the timed one, and once you do it, you can't really go back to it, right? And I think for that, thankfully I had my CFP board phone number on the phone and all of that. But just the experience of it all just made me realize that it's all about just keeping your calm, cool collection, and just going through that process. So, and never would have expected that to happen at the library, but here we are.
The, the library of all places. Who cyber attacks a library? Like,
Yeah.
but hey, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ramen, shall we wrap?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I do want to ask a question for you guys. So, Nico, you mentioned second attempt. James, was this your second attempt as well?
This was my
First
first.
attempt. Okay, so we got a first timer and a second timer. So there's a lot of people out there who are taking their exam the first attempt, and especially their second attempt, and they have this fear of like, failing. Hey,
Yeah.
I want to take this test, but I'm worried. I had my, material, yeah, whatever is going on in their mind. So what are some, things that you could share with these first timers and second timers who are about to take this test that, hey, like if I were you, I would do it this way. So James will start off with the first attempt, and then Nipa will start off with somebody who's taking
Yeah.
it, this as a second attempt.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the discipline part. I mean, that's for me, that was my biggest struggle with studying overall, but I felt so much more confident heading into the test, knowing that we had an 8 week game plan. We executed on that. We had, progress points that we're checking in and seeing how we're doing. So I just felt like if I would have tried to do this on my own, like I don't know what my confidence level would have looked like on exam day, but I came in pretty confident exam morning, just knowing that, there's a whole plan and we followed it and we executed on the studying part. And I just got to have trust in myself that I remember how to execute on it and go do it and try and get out of my own way on exam day.
100%. Nipa.
That's great. For me, For those who are taking it for the first time, my advice would be similar to James. I think structure, start early, and give yourself enough time for trial and error just on the process of studying. As a second timer, I would say my advice would be for anyone who's looking to do this a second time around, believe in yourself. You know the material, and you know where you need to do better. And believe in yourself, get the help that you need. Obviously with the structure, but I've become now a big proponent of structured approach and surrounding yourself with, coaches like you to really help you go through that structured process and really call you out when you need to be called out and having that support system. And it's not end of the world. My mental dialogue also equally, and I think week 6 and 7 was, if I don't pass this time around, I will do it again, right? So I think that this isn't end of the world, and also you are no less worthy and loved if you don't pass this time around. I think that's something that I had to work through, really having the test results be reflective of your worth. And I think separating those two out was a process for me, but just recognize that test results are one thing, and who you are and what your worth is for you to define, and don't let the test results define that for you.
Yeah. Wow. Well said. Well said.
Very well said.
Yeah.
What are you guys looking forward to carrying forward most from the exam, the material, the study process? What are you guys looking forward to carrying forward into your practice or into your career now?
Yeah, I think for myself, it's really just having a better understanding of the tax and the estate planning world. And I feel like I have more confidence going into meetings now with clients to have discussions around this stuff. And so I've kind of looked at the CFP as like it was a place I needed to get to because I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to do this for the next 30 plus years. Like, how do I get the gold standard in the industry, behind my name, and not just the letters to give confidence, but the education and just understanding more of these complex topics that, prior to this, if we were having those types of discussions with clients, I typically wasn't the one leading them. I'd have a specialist I brought in. So for me, I think just excited to go out and implement the stuff that we learn now.
Nice.
For me, it's estate planning. I am doubling down on estate planning. I think that while I felt so lost while studying for estate planning and all the different trusts and all the things that we went through during the exam, I have renewed respect for what estate planning brings for people from a wealth management and legacy and generational wealth perspective, and just the value that it has and the impact it has multi-generationally. So I'm looking to double down and go further in estate planning.
Phenomenal. You guys were phenomenal students. We were lucky to have you. We couldn't be more proud of you guys. And we know that you guys have a bright and long future in the industry. Please don't forget us little people. Um, when you guys are on the cover of Forbes or something, don't forget about us. But thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations. We couldn't think of, as Neeb had mentioned earlier, we had such a wonderful group dynamic. You guys really did work hand in lockstep. And it was great to see some of the competition subside and some of the more collective efforts, because I think you guys slowly realized that somebody's going to know something better than me, and it's better off that I learn it from them instead of compete with them.
Yeah.
And you guys were exemplary of that. You guys are exemplary people in your field, and we couldn't be more proud to call you NISM tutoring graduates. So, but thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come and join us.
Thank you.
Thanks for
We
having
wouldn't
us.
have been able to do this without you. So thank you.
All right, guys. As always, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to Raman or myself, and we will see you guys next week.